I do want to throw you a curveball. Do you have any regrets or changes you would make as a sports parent that you would kind of warn now sports parents about to really young kids?
That's a great question. I think that my kids were 5 and 6 when I wrote my first book, Changing the Game, and kind of gave people ideas of this is what you can do on this journey. And I think that looking back on it now, but my only regrets are the times I didn't take my advice in that book, right? When I was really disappointed, especially in like my son who was very quiet in the car, and I wanted to talk about the game and fix all the things he did wrong and things like that. Those are my biggest regrets. But I think what I was good at the time was also recognizing what I had done and apologizing about it and things like that. So I think I'm really happy that the stuff that I wrote about 10 plus years ago has kind of stood the test of time in terms of what kids really want and need from their parents on this journey. But I think if people ask me like, how have I changed with Changing the Game project? I really believed, I think back in 2012, that we could have systemic change in sports for what I was doing and what you're doing in Positive Coaching Alliance. And I'm not sure that I believe that anymore, because I think the business of sport is so huge now, bigger than the NFL in terms of dollars. And the business of sport doesn't really suit the needs of children in sport, and that to me is sad. But what I do believe is that families can do it the right way. I think individual coaches and teams can do it the right way. And I think in some towns and clubs and schools, they can really do it the right way and make sport this co-curricular thing that reinforces what really matters. But systemically, man, I think that ship has sailed, sadly, and it's always going to be difficult, and therefore it's always going to be up to parents to be the ones to manage their child's sporting journey and make sure that it happens in an overall positive way.
And I think parents can really figure out, okay, what coach is best for my kid and how they respond to them. So maybe we can talk about the coaches a little bit and the role they play. What are some mistakes youth coaches are making nowadays, and how can we solve that?
I think the biggest mistakes that I see youth coaches making, and a lot of times it's not their fault. It's just that we don't train them, right? We have all these requirements now, hours of safe sport training and concussion and first aid, which is all great. But a lot of times, like a volunteer youth coach gets 4 hours of training, and we haven't even talked about football or soccer or basketball and what does a great practice environment looks like, and what are the needs and values and priorities of that 8-year-old in front of you, or that 6-year-old in front of you, or that 10-year-old in front of you. And so they default to, well, what was it like when I was 17 years old? It's football, let's go run laps, let's stand in line. But there's no kid who says, God, I hope we stand in line at practice today. So I think that's the biggest advice for coaches is create an environment, create a practice that you'd like to be a part of, right? Number two, I think when the research, this woman Amanda Visick out of George Washington sort of has 3 buckets that drives enjoyment for kids in sports, and enjoyment is the number one reason that they play. And those buckets are a sort of a challenging environment, right? So be organized and challenging, and they want to learn. Number 2, positive coaching, and number 3, positive team dynamics. And those 3 things are what's going to make those kids come back next year. And guess what, coach? You control all of those 3 things. So pay attention to team dynamics and how people treat each other, right? And make that an intentional part of your practice, right? Pay attention to how you interact with kids, to how you talk to kids, to how you give them that one word of encouragement. We call this like the rule of one, right? One person, one comment, one time can sustain them for the next month. could sustain them for their entire life if you do it right. Right. So as that coach, recognize who's in front of me, what do they need, and that I am in charge of creating the environment that's going to get them to come back. And no one goes, oh, remember that game on May 2nd when we were 8? What was the score? No one cares about that, right? They remember the hotel. They remember the pool. That's what sticks with them.